Welcome back, my friends. Happy Thanksgiving. Today's video, we're going to do another question and answer once a month on the community tab, my YouTube channel. I'll put out a question prompt such as this one. Down below, you can ask me anything about anything. I'm going to try and respond to as many top-ranked questions in today's video. Thank you to everyone who left a question, left a comment, and thumbs up other people's questions. The top-ranked question was from Hitch. Biden said there are other ways to fund Ukraine. How would Biden support Ukraine if the speaker will not schedule a vote? So there's two different kinds of money that could possibly be redirected to Ukraine. So here's a press release from May. This is the Senate Judiciary Committee. This is Senator Graham saying the first transfer of seized Russian oligarch assets has been sent to Ukraine. So there's the $300 billion that Putin was dumb enough to leave in Western banks when he invaded Ukraine. That money is still frozen. But then there's all these individual Russians who have been sanctioned. Russians who owned property or had assets in the United States. We can seize those assets. We can sell their property and then redirect that money towards Ukraine. We're currently doing that. Now, the $300 billion in Western banks, that's a little bit more tricky because the banks are not going to support having Russia's money legally just sent to Ukraine. There has to be a judicial process. Ideally, Russia has representation and they're part of that judicial process. I still think this eventually will happen, but for the moment, Western banks don't want to set this precedent that if a dictator keeps money in a Western bank, a Western government can seize that money and give it to somebody else. If this happens, then no dictators will want to hold their money in Western banks. This is bad for Western banks. All their money would be pulled out. You don't have to worry about it, but I do think eventually this $300 billion will be directed towards Ukraine. Ukraine looks to seize interest on Russian frozen assets as Kyiv scrambles for wartime funds. So that $300 billion just idling in Western banks, it's accruing interest. So legally, the United States is trying to redirect the interest from the principal of the frozen assets to Ukraine. I think this is also eventually going to happen. On top of that, the United States military can still do a lot to support Ukraine as far as surveillance and intelligence. US EURCOM, this is the major command for Europe, is very active. They're very busy supporting Ukraine. So even if Congress doesn't want to allocate any more military funds for direct transfers to Ukraine, the United States military can still provide services and training and intelligence at Biden's discretion. It won't be as much as if there was billions of dollars allocated, but the United States under Biden will continue supporting Ukraine, even if Speaker Johnson refuses to schedule a vote. Next question. Why is so many Republicans against sending aid to Ukraine? I think it's only because the Democrats are in power, so if Democrats say yes, Republicans say no, keep up the good work. This is true to a little bit, taking a contrarian position because Democrats don't like Republicans, Republicans don't like Democrats. But that's not how it always used to be. Here's the Vandenberg resolution, and it was Senator Vandenberg, this was back in the late 1940s, who said, "Politics stops at the water's edge," meaning that it's okay for Democrats and Republicans to fight, as long as on foreign policy, what happens in other parts of the world, we stand united with our allies. So Truman was president at the time, and this led towards the creation of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I don't think we should be squabbling amongst ourselves in partisan politics when it comes to national security and the security of Europe and our allies. I think Republicans are making a huge mistake, and they're probably going to be punished at the ballot box next November if they continue down this path, saying they don't want to support our democratic allies around the world. On top of that, some Republicans still are holding a grudge against Ukraine because of Donald Trump's first impeachment. The inquiry involved a phone call with President Zelensky. So this was back in 2019 or 2020. And Donald Trump was talking to President Zelensky on the phone, pressuring him to investigate Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is Joe Biden's son. At the time, it was looking like Joe Biden was going to be the Democratic nominee to challenge him in the 2020 election. So you can go online, you can read the transcripts, you can see it for yourself. I've looked at the transcripts, and yes, Donald Trump was trying to pressure President Zelensky to launch a criminal investigation in Ukraine of Hunter Biden to make his Democratic opponent look bad in the election. In the phone call, he was withholding a visit to the White House and saying he was going to hold up military aid until Zelensky launched an investigation of Joe Biden's son. This is all completely inappropriate. Donald Trump was impeached for this, but the Senate didn't want to remove him, so that was the political process that we went through. But yes, this is partly why a couple House Republicans are still holding a grudge against Ukraine. Next question. How are the Russian forces in Transnistria able to get supplies when they are landlocked in Moldova? They've got Romania and Ukraine on both sides. Do they just head to the local grocery store or something? And to the best of my knowledge, there's about 2,000 Russian soldiers trapped in Transnistria, and they're not going anywhere. They're not rotating in, they're not rotating out. As far as heavy equipment, no, nothing's getting in or out. That would require a Russian plane. But as far as like food and water, yeah, I imagine the residents of Transnistria are supplying them somehow, but honestly, if I was a Russian soldier, this is where I'd want to be. I'd want to be trapped in Transnistria, not fighting on the front lines. But the Russian soldiers here, they wouldn't put up much of a defense if the Ukrainian military wanted to smash them. They're also not getting out. This is a frozen conflict, and I do think it's going to remain that way until the Russian forces are expelled from the occupied territories. I've talked in the past why Ukraine does not want to antagonize this region. Moldova already is not a very stable country. If Ukraine were to attack the Russians in Transnistria, this could destabilize the government in Moldova. This could put at risk Ukrainian refugees who have resettled in Moldova. So Ukraine made the decision probably a long time ago. They probably do have some forces stationed over here, but I don't think they're going to displace or attack these Russians in the near term. Hi Jake, you always tell us at the end of your videos to defend the truth and democracy, but can the fight be won if our opponents are not bound by the rules that we ourselves have? Greetings from Slovakia, where we lost the battle, but the fight is not over yet. So the law of armed conflict applies to everyone, whether or not they signed the 1949 Geneva Conventions. These are the definitions and the rules of war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide. And yes, there are dictators and countries that violate these laws with impunity and have gotten away with it for a very long time. I'm looking at you, North Korea. But you can't be part of the international community and violate these laws. And this is what Vladimir Putin wanted, but isn't going to be allowed to do. This is the March 2023 arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court for Vladimir Putin and Maria Lvova-Belova for genocide, for the abduction of Ukrainian children, and then eradicating their Ukrainian identity. This is a war crime. So Putin is never attending another Olympics. He's never attending another, G20 summit or whatever in a country that respects international law. So Putin is a pariah, and he's an ineffective leader for his country. Sure, he can still go to China, he can still go to Iran, he can still go to North Korea, but the list is very small when you choose to violate international law. So your question is, can Ukraine win without breaking the rules themselves? And the answer is yes. It takes tremendous political will, given the size and resources available to Russia, but Russia is going to lose this war, and all of these people are going to be held accountable by the international community. Is the Dnipro River crossing a way forward for Ukraine and ultimately a path to Crimea? Yes, I mean, if you talk about straight distance, if Ukrainians can get to the other side of the river, it's a pretty direct path to Crimea. But in reality, if Ukraine wants to liberate Crimea, they're going to have to first starve it off from being resupplied by Russia. So it's actually better if Ukraine could reach the city of Berdyansk, Mariupol, and Melitopol. Once they have access to the Sea of Azov, they can start going after Russian supply lines to resupply their forces in Crimea. This is essential in order to drain the peninsula of people and resources. Eventually, Crimea will run out of food and water. They'll run out of fuel. They'll run out of ammunition. Ukraine needs to cut them off first before they'll successfully be able to assault into the peninsula. It'll happen someday, but it's going to take a little bit more time. If Congress doesn't vote for support on Ukraine, what can Biden do under the lend-lease program? I've mentioned this in my recent update videos, but I actually am optimistic now. There will be a vote, some kind of combined aid package involving Israel and maybe border security. So, concerning the lend-lease program, here's the press release from May 9th, 2022. Biden signs Lend-Lease Act to supply more security assistance to Ukraine. President Biden never used it. This expired in October of 2023 without ever being used. And the reason why is the United States, for whatever reason, decided to do just direct aid. So every time we give a military aid package to Ukraine, we're not expecting to get that back. Whereas with the Lend-Lease, we are lending and leasing equipment that we expect to be returned to us in some way. I think, honestly, the Lend-Lease, when Biden signed it in May of 2022, this was meant as a threat. This was meant as a recall to the Russians. Remember how much the Lend-Lease benefited you during World War II? Well, if the United States goes to war, we could just as easily do the same thing for our allies again. This is not a good answer, but the United States is not at war. Nobody has attacked us. Our economy, our political bodies, we are not in war mode. For Ukraine, this is a battle for their survival. For everyone living in Eastern Europe, they also feel it too. But the political will of the American people is not for war at the moment. So President Biden chose not to use the Lend-Lease, chose not to flood Ukraine with weapons, but he wanted Putin to know that the threat was there if Putin used WMD or if Putin attacked a NATO ally, attacked the Baltics. It could come back if things escalate or things get worse in Europe. Next question. It's very difficult to find a decent question to like, so I'm asking one instead. Do you think that Ukraine's air defenses will withstand the anticipated coming winter assault on its energy infrastructure? Are they better prepared than last winter? 100% yes, they are better prepared than last winter. And this is a map from Ukraine Battle Map with a hypothetical of where are Ukraine's air defense systems. He doesn't actually know where they are, but this can give you a picture of what can be covered. So Ukraine has 3 Patriot air defense systems, 1 SAMP-T, 4 IRIS-Ts, 4 NASAMS, and 44 books. Ukraine's a very big country. This is a good distribution to protect as much territory as possible, but as you can see, there's going to be gaps, there's going to be weak points, and Russia is still going to get drones and missiles through, but it's not going to be as bad as last year, where Ukraine, at the beginning of the winter, was just trying to survive on their S-300 systems. It can always improve. I think Europe is going to continue resupplying air defense missiles and new missile defense systems. If Congress can pass another aid package this December, I think another Patriot system will arrive early next year. If you were the President of the United States for a month, what would you do? Unfortunately, being president for a month realistically probably wouldn't be enough time to get anything serious done. So I guess on day one, I would ask to learn about the aliens. I want to know about them UFOs. I do live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm not far from Area 51. So here's Las Vegas, and this is Area 51, if you want to go look at it on Google satellite images. There's no public roads that go there. I don't think there are actually any aliens at Area 51. I think it's too high profile, so they probably were moved to Alaska or something. But a serious response is, if I could be in charge of the United States government and was capable of reforming it, what would I do? I think that's a better question. And I think the House of Representatives needs to be expanded by 10 times. So currently in the House of Representatives, there's 435 seats. Each representative represents about 765,000 people. I think the House should be expanded 10x. Have there be 4,350 members of the House. That would truly then make it more representative of the American people. Sure, it'd be chaos. You can't get them all in one room. All the voting would have to be online. But it would be impossible for special interest groups to buy Congress people then. 435 House members is very manageable for political action groups and committees to secure what they want in Congress. But if there was 4,000 members of the House, well, now it's a lot harder for special interest money to buy Congress, the entirety of Congress. There'd just be too many people transitioning in and out. So that's one solution I have to fix American politics. The other one is the disastrous Supreme Court ruling of Citizens United versus the FEC. And this basically made unconstitutional all of our campaign finance laws here in the United States. This was a 5-4 decision in 2010, and it basically ruled that money is speech, and free speech is protected by the Constitution, meaning there should be no limits on how much money people want to spend on elections. Sure, they're not directly the contributions going to the election campaigns, but with super PACs and whatnot, it's unlimited money. So as president, I'd have to replace Supreme Court justices who are crazy enough to think that money equals speech, and people who have more money should have more speech in a democracy. I'm a big fan of one man, one vote. I don't like Citizens United, and I think elections in the United States have gone completely insane since 2010, when Citizens United opened the floodgates, and now literally billions flows into our elections every 2 years. How can a country be forced to pay reparations? If Russia says, no, I don't want to, what happens then? So when this war is over and Russia has lost, they're going to have to pay a lot of reparations. And if they don't, if Putin or his replacement government refuses, then the sanctions never come off. Sanctions are the incentive for Russia to cooperate. But I think the secret is this $300 billion frozen in Western banks. That money's never going back to Russia. It's going to go to Ukraine after the war. But Russia has to be part of the legal process and acknowledge it. They have to give consent for this money being held in Western banks to be sent to Ukraine as reparations. Fun fact, Germany paid off their World War I reparations. They made the last payment in 2010. So in 1933, Hitler said that the reparations from the Treaty of Versailles were too burdensome, and he just wasn't going to pay them anymore. Well, eventually Germany got back to paying their debt, and they finally paid it off in 2010. How do you feel the Russian war crime prosecutions will play out after the war? Using the Balkan War as an example, do you feel any of the top Russian commanders, or Putin himself, will ever be officially charged and prosecuted in person at The Hague? I personally don't think Putin is ever going to allow himself to be taken alive. He's seen how it ends for other dictators around the world, Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi, and he's not going out that way. I think someone in his regime will have to take him out, or else he'll take his own life if it's looking bleak for him staying in power. But as far as all these top Russian commanders, all of them need to be tried in The Hague. Gerasimov, Shoigu, everyone at the top. Will every Russian soldier be held accountable? And no, but the most prominent generals, yes, they all need to be held accountable once this war is over. And it might take a while. Comparable to the Nuremberg trials, there will be this influx of generals put on trial immediately, but then it might take decades to find them all, the worst offenders, and hold them accountable. They might try to get their money out of Russia and relocate to China, relocate to Iran, North Korea, try and lay low, but eventually Ukraine and the international community will get all these guys, and they will be held accountable for their crimes. As far as Russia, they're also going to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission once a new government replaces the current regime in Moscow. Because the pictures and videos of how ordinary Russians are being treated is horrendous. People being given 10-year prison sentences for holding a blank sign, at a protest. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of judges and a lot of police chiefs guilty of a lot, and they also need to be punished by the new government inside Russia once Putin's regime is finally over. Who do you suspect may be working with or under the influence of Russian intelligence? Elon Musk is my number one guy. In my opinion, he's the most dangerous threat to democracy around the world right now. When you talk about is money equal to free speech, Elon Musk, with a net worth of $240 billion, is the loudest person in the world. He has more speech than, the poorest 95% of the world combined. And Elon does not like democracy. He likes dictatorships. He likes doing business, booking rocket flights and selling electric cars in dictatorships because it's easier to do business. In China or Russia, you don't have to worry about environmental laws, consumer protection laws, labor laws. As long as you show respect to the dictator, that dictator can give you anything you want. It's just easier to do business. Elon also hates the political process where he feels the need to give campaign contributions to politicians who have to run for re-election every 2 or 4 years. You don't have that problem in Russia or China. Here's a picture of Elon meeting with President Xi. He came to San Francisco a week or two ago, and Elon's never going to say anything negative or critical of Russia or China or Saudi Arabia or Iran. I guess on my channel it's just kind of my pet peeve that Elon is still a thing and he's never going away. Who else is under the influence of Russian intelligence? Anyone dumb enough to be supporting Russia in mass media? Tucker Carlson and people like that Jackson Hinkle guy? Russian money is everywhere, and it's not that difficult to move money around in the West. This is all short term. Russia's going to lose this war. All these people, when the war is over, are going to say they never supported Russia, but we know the truth. How much is the West realistically supporting Ukraine 1 year from now? And will be it enough? Thank you so much for standing by Ukraine this long, Jake. You're an amazing guy. Greetings from Germany. So here's a cool flowchart showing all the money and where it's come from that's gone to Ukraine. So far, $233 billion US dollars in aid. The vast majority is from EU institutions, mostly financial. The United States is the largest military aid contributor, $44 billion so far. Germany's not far behind. We've got the UK, Norway, Japan, Canada, Poland, the Netherlands, Denmark. I don't see this ending in 2024. I think all of the Western allies are going to continue supplying Ukraine with a consistent amount of financial, humanitarian, and military aid. So where will we be 1 year from now? And as far as the aid picture, I think it's going to be about the same. I don't see the Scandinavian countries, the UK, or Eastern European countries giving up on Ukraine. I'm actually still positive at the moment that yes, Speaker Johnson is going to allow a vote, and the United States will also continue supporting Ukraine. So a 1 year time period, nothing to worry about. That's all for this question and answer. Thank you so much to everyone who participated. Thank you so much to all my channel members and Patreon supporters. If you made it this far in the video and you really appreciate the work I do, consider joining my Patreon or my channel membership, whichever is more convenient to you. I really appreciate the support. Every day I tell people I have the greatest job in the world, just YouTubing and making content for you guys, sharing my thoughts and opinion, and trying to do a little good in the world. That's all for this video. Till the next one, take care.